The evening air hung heavy over Hong Kong's financial district as news broke that would send shockwaves through the corridors of the power in Beijing and Washington. A business deal worth 23 billion US dollars had just been announced, one that would place an aging tycoon at the center of a geopolitical storm brewing between the world's two superpowers. At 96 years old, Li Ka-Shing has lived many lives. Refugee, factory worker, plastic flower manufacturer, real estate mogul, and ultimately architect of a business empire spanning 50 countries with 323,000 employees. His story reads like a modern fairy tale, a rags to riches journey that embodies the spirit of Hong Kong itself. For decades, they've called him Superman in Hong Kong, a nickname earned through an uncanny ability to make the right business decisions at precisely the right moments. Li Ka-Shing once said two things: if you start running after hearing the gunshot, it's already too late, and never try to earn the last penny. From his early days as a refugee in Hong Kong to becoming one of the world's richest men, Li has always been a master of timing and strategy. But fairy tales rarely end with international controversy. Now, Li's company's decision to sell strategic ports along the Panama Canal to American investors has been labeled everything from a shrewd business move to an act of betrayal, which is why his latest decision has left so many observers puzzled. Why would the man renowned for his shrewd business choices suddenly sell strategic ports along the Panama Canal to American investors? A move that has got Beijing frowned upon? Has Superman lost his touch at 96? Or is this yet another calculated move that others simply haven't understood yet? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Li Ka-Shing, the legendary businessman who just made headlines by selling ports to Blackrock. The year was 1928. In Chaozhou, a coastal city in southeastern China, a boy was born who would one day become Asia's most influential businessman. But Li Ka-Shing's path to success would first lead through hardship and displacement. War clouds gathered over China. By 1940, as Japanese forces advanced during World War II, 12-year-old Li and his family fled their homeland, joining thousands of refugees streaming into British-controlled Hong Kong. They arrived with little more than the clothes on their backs, hoping to build a new life in the bustling colony. Then came the blow that would shape young Li's character forever. His father, once a respected primary school principal in China who had found work at a watch factory in Hong Kong, fell ill with tuberculosis. His painful death left 14-year-old Li as the family's sole breadwinner. School was no longer an option. Before he turned 16, Li was forced to quit his education and find work to support his mother and siblings. Li found work in a plastics factory, where he demonstrated extraordinary dedication. He would send 90% of his pay to his mother, keeping just enough to survive. His work ethic was legendary, often working 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, a pace that he reportedly maintained even into his later years. His intelligence and fierce determination caught the attention of his employers. By 18, an age when most young men were just beginning to find their way, Li had already risen to become the factory's top salesman and was promoted to factory manager. But Li Ka-Shing wasn't born to work for others. In 1950, with Hong Kong still rebuilding from the war, 22-year-old Li made a decision that would change his life. With carefully saved earnings of approximately 50,000 Hong Kong dollars, he founded his own company, Chung Kong Industries. The name, meaning Long River in Chinese, was inspired by the mighty Yangtze, symbolizing strength, endurance, and the unstoppable flow of progress. While others saw plastics as merely practical, Li saw the future. He anticipated that plastics would become a booming industry in the post-war economy. His company began manufacturing all kinds of plastic products, but became particularly known for its colorful plastic flowers, which found eager market in the United States. He attributed his early success to his willingness to learn the latest industry trends and adapt to changing markets. Li once said, "As for me, even to this day, every night before I go to sleep, I make sure to read." Knowledge alone may not determine your lifelong wealth, but it certainly increases your opportunities. Creating opportunities for yourself is the best path forward. This ability to see around corners, to spot trends before others, would become Li's signature throughout his career. The plastic flower king of Hong Kong was just getting started. The 1960s brought turmoil to Hong Kong. The Cultural Revolution raged across the border in mainland China, sending shivers through the colony. In 1967, Hong Kong was shaken by the 6/7 riots, a period of violent unrest fueled by the Cultural Revolution across the border. What started as a labor dispute quickly escalated into bombings, street clashes, and open defiance against British colonial rule. Property values in Hong Kong plummeted as wealthy residents fled the uncertainty. Where others saw chaos, Li Ka-Shing saw opportunity. While continuing to grow his plastic manufacturing business, Li began quietly acquiring properties on Hong Kong Island at fire sale prices. Land that no one wanted today would, he believed, become invaluable tomorrow. It was a gamble that required both courage and foresight, qualities Li possessed in abundance. His instincts proved correct. As Hong Kong stabilized, property values soared. By the late 1970s, Li had transformed from a manufacturer into Hong Kong's leading private developer. In 1971, he formally established Chung Kong Holdings Limited, which developed residential, office, retail, industrial, and hotel properties throughout the territory. The company quickly gained a reputation for quality developments and timely project completion. But Li's most audacious move was yet to come. In 1979, as the world watched China begin to open its economy under Deng Xiaoping, Li made a historic gambit. He purchased a controlling interest in Hutchison Li from British banking giant HSBC. The acquisition sent shockwaves through Hong Kong's business community. For the first time, a Chinese businessman bought one of the largest British-owned trading houses that had dominated the colony since its founding. In 1989, during the Tiananmen Square incident in mainland China, while many foreign companies were withdrawing their investments, Li Ka-Shing instead made a bold move into the mainland market, becoming Hong Kong's largest investor in China. In business circles, this made Li the first Chinese taipan, a term previously reserved for foreign business leaders in China. The symbolism was not lost on anyone. Power was shifting in Hong Kong, decades before the scheduled 1997 handover to China. Under Li's leadership, Hutchison Li Ka-Shing emerged as the world's largest independent operator of ports. The company expanded globally, buying Husky Oil in Canada and setting up mobile phone operations in Australia, Europe, and the United States. In 2015, Chung Kong merged with its subsidiary Hutchison Li Ka-Shing as part of a major reorganization to become CK Hutchison Holdings. A new company composed of the group's property assets was spun off as Chung Kong Property Holdings. This is also the holding company that has been in hot water during the recent Panama Ports sales discussions. After decades at the helm, Li announced his retirement as chairman of CK Hutchison Holdings in March 2018 at the age of 89. His elder son, Victor Li, took over leadership of the company, though Li remained as a senior advisor. By this point, Li had built a conglomerate spanning 50 countries with approximately 323,000 employees. His business empire included ports, energy, real estate, retail, telecommunications, and new media. In that year, his personal net worth was estimated at $35 billion, making him the 23rd richest person in the world. The refugee boy from Haozhou had become one of the most powerful businessmen on the planet. On the evening of May 23, 1996, a black Mercedes carrying Victor Li, Li Ka-Shing's eldest son and heir apparent, was making its way to the family's residence on Shusen Hill Road. The car slowed as it approached the entrance to the estate. Suddenly, another vehicle swerved in front, blocking its path. Armed men leaped out, brandishing AK-47 assault rifles and handguns. They fired 2 shots into the Mercedes, shattering the calm of the exclusive neighborhood. Within seconds, they dragged Victor from the car and bundled him into their vehicle, leaving the driver behind to deliver the shocking news to Li Ka-Shing. His son had been kidnapped. The mastermind behind this audacious crime was Chiang Se-kyung, known in Hong Kong's underworld as Big Spender. After forcing Victor to strip down to his underwear, Chiang imprisoned him in an abandoned chicken farm. Then came the most brazen move of all. With explosives strapped to his waist, Chung personally visited Li Ka-shing's home to negotiate the ransom. Face to face with one of Asia's richest men, he demanded an astronomical sum, 2 billion Hong Kong dollars, which was approximately 260 million US dollars. Li Ka-shing remained eerily calm throughout the ordeal, a fact that even surprised his son's captor. "Why are you so calm?" Chung asked, puzzled by Li's composure. Li's response revealed his pragmatic nature. "Because this is my fault. We have such a high profile in Hong Kong, yet we had no security precautions. I often drive myself to play golf at 5 a.m. with no protection. Anyone could easily surround my car on the road. I need to carefully reconsider our approach." Li negotiated the ransom down to 1.038 billion Hong Kong dollars, a number that matched the stock code of CK Infrastructure, 1038. The amount still set a world record for kidnapping ransoms, earning an entry in the Guinness Book of World Records. As he handed over the cash, Li offered his son's captor unexpected advice. "Take this money and invest it in our company's stocks," he suggested. "Or save it, it's enough to last half your lifetime." After receiving the payment, Chung personally drove Victor to the Excelsior Hotel in Causeway Bay and released him unharmed. The story might have ended there, but it took another twist. Weeks later, Chung called Li again. He had lost 20 million Hong Kong dollars gambling in Macau and wanted investment advice. "I can only teach you to be a good person," Li replied. "You have only one path forward. Flee far away. Otherwise, your fate will be tragic." Li's words proved prophetic. Chung was eventually arrested in mainland China, tried for multiple crimes, including the kidnapping, and executed in December 1998. The swift capture and execution of Chung by mainland police, despite the crime occurring in Hong Kong, led to widespread speculation that Li had bypassed local Hong Kong police and sought help directly from the highest levels of China's government. This episode highlighted the unique position Li occupied, a businessman with enough influence to potentially call on Beijing's assistance in a personal matter. It was a power few in Hong Kong possessed, and it spoke volumes about Li's special relationship with the Chinese leadership. Li Ka-shing's relationship with China has always been a delicate dance, one that has evolved significantly over time. He was born before today's China was born. As a native of Chaozhou who maintains strong cultural ties to his birthplace, Li has often expressed emotional connections to China. He once quoted Song and Tang dynasty poets, saying, "Where there's home, there is heart, and where my heart finds its inner peace, I call it my homeland." During Hong Kong's transition from British to Chinese rule, Li played a significant role. He served on committees that drafted Hong Kong's Basic Law, the mini-constitution governing the city since it was handed to Beijing. He also served on the elite committee that selected Hong Kong's leaders, demonstrating his influence beyond just business. Li's ties with the Chinese Communist Party can be traced back to the Deng Xiaoping era. During the first 20 years of China's reform and opening up, Li secured exclusive meetings with China's leaders, including Deng Xiaoping and later presidents Jiang Zemin and Hu Jintao. These connections benefited his business, but also prompted criticism from some quarters. The kidnapping incident in 1996 revealed the extent of Li's connections, but over the past 2 decades, Li's relationship with Beijing has cooled noticeably. This shift became particularly evident in 2013 when Li's Chung Kong Holdings began slowly restructuring its holdings in mainland China, selling off real estate, retail chains, and other assets while shifting investments to Europe. This move sent shockwaves through China's business community. Wang Shi, president of Vanke, one of China's largest real estate developers, wrote on Weibo, "The very shrewd Mr. Li Ka-Shing is selling properties in Beijing and Shanghai. This is a signal. Be careful." By 2015, Li's divestment from China had become a public controversy. In September of that year, a Xinhua-affiliated WeChat account published an article titled "Don't Let Li Ka-Shing Run Away," which charged Li with profiting from China before abandoning it. The article described Li as transforming into a long, sharp-toothed creature and instructed him to pay the people back, keep symbolic holdings in China, and do more philanthropy. This triggered a wave of online attacks on Li, though government censors eventually called off the criticism. State media quickly changed tone, with the Securities Times publishing an article entitled "Let Li Ka-Shing Go, the Sky Won't Collapse." Li responded with a press statement criticizing the personal nature of the attacks. He explained his decision to invest abroad as consistent with official policy, pointing to the government's going out strategy and Xi's One Belt, One Road initiative. This 2015 controversy highlighted the changing relationship between Li and the Chinese government. While the government ultimately took a relatively tolerant stance toward Li's business decisions then, the situation would be quite different a decade later. The morning of March 4th, 2025 began like any other in Hong Kong's gleaming financial district. But by afternoon, a press release from CK Hutchison Holdings had set off a geopolitical earthquake that would be felt from Beijing to Washington. CK Hutchison, the company now run by Li Ka-Shing's son Victor, but still closely associated with Li Ka-Shing himself, announced a major deal. It would sell its entire 80% stake in Hutchison Ports, which owns 43 ports across 23 countries, to a U.S. consortium led by Blackrock for $22.8 billion US dollars. The financial details were impressive enough, but one aspect of the deal stood out above all others. CK Hutchison would sell its 90% interest in Panama Ports, which owns and operates the Panama terminals, Balboa and Cristobal, strategic facilities at both ends of the Panama Canal. The company had held these concessions since 1996, when Panama granted Hutchison Whampoa the right to operate these ports. Why would this matter so much? Consider the strategic importance of the Panama Canal, a crucial artery of global trade connecting the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. About 21% of China's cargo transits through this waterway, making China the second largest user after the United States. It's of great significance to China's national interests, with the country's foreign trade stability and logistics chain directly affected by its operation. The timing of the deal raised eyebrows worldwide. It came just weeks after U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited Panama on February 3, 2025, to relay President Donald Trump's concerns about alleged Chinese control of the Panama Canal. The rhetoric from Washington had been escalating for months. During his inaugural address on January 20, 2025, Trump declared, "China is operating the Panama Canal, and we didn't give it to China. We gave it to Panama, and we're taking it back." The pressure campaign worked. Shortly after Rubio's visit, Panama announced its decision not to renew its Belt and Road Initiative agreement with China. CK Hutchison, operating 2 ports in the Panama Canal, found itself caught in the crossfire of great power competition. Adding another layer of complexity, the transaction coincided with China's 2 sessions, the country's biggest annual political meetings, where top leaders set the national agenda. The event brings together 2 major political bodies, the National People's Congress, which is China's legislature, and the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, or CPPCC. Victor Li, chairman of CK Hutchison and the eldest son of Li Ka-Shing, is actually a member of the CPPCC. According to Hong Kong media, there were rumors that a senior Chinese leader met with Victor behind closed doors in Beijing to discuss the deal, but whether that meeting actually happened, that's up in the air. What's not up for debate, though, is that Beijing was not pleased with the deal. Shortly after CK Hutchison announced plans to sell its Panama ports to Blackrock, China responded. On March 27th, the government ordered state-owned companies to pause any new deals with businesses tied to Li Ka-Shing and his family. The storm broke after China's two sessions concluded. Pro-Beijing Hong Kong newspaper Ta Kung Pao published a scathing commentary titled "Do Not Be Naive and Do Not Be Fooled" on March 13, 2025. The article asserted that the transaction between C.K. Hutchison and BlackRock was an act of hegemony by the U.S., describing it as an example of the U.S. attempting to use its state power to encroach on other countries through despicable means such as coercion and pressure. This official stance was much less tolerant than the government's response to Li's divestment in 2015. Meanwhile, in the United States, President Trump celebrated the deal as a victory, framing it as winning back control of the waterway from Chinese influence. For Li Ka-Shing, business has always been business, or at least that's how he might see it. But as tensions rise between China and the United States, the choices he makes are no longer just about profits and deals. For his family and C.K. Hutchison, staying neutral is no longer an option. Whether they like it or not, the time has come to pick a side. The sun sets over Victoria Harbour, casting long shadows across Hong Kong's iconic skyline, a skyline Li Ka-Shing helped build. At 96 years old, the man once known as Superman now finds his legacy hanging in the balance. From a refugee boy fleeing war-torn China to becoming one of Asia's wealthiest individuals, Li's journey embodies the remarkable economic transformation of Hong Kong and China over the past 7 decades. His story, selling plastic flowers in the 1950s, building a global conglomerate spanning ports, telecommunications, retail, and energy, demonstrates extraordinary business acumen and adaptability. His ability to navigate changing political and economic landscapes made him a legend in Asian business circles. But the era has changed. Compared to the past, when globalization was in full swing and conglomerates faced fewer restrictions on expansion, the escalating rivalry between China and the U.S. has forced large corporations like C.K. Hutchison to carefully assess the risks posed by the broader geopolitical environment. Even a Superman as powerful as Li Ka-Shing and his empire, C.K. Hutchison, was neither capable nor willing to directly challenge the mounting tensions between global superpowers. For Li and his family, Beijing's criticism must give them mixed feelings, given their long history of engagement with China and contributions to its development. Li established the Li Ka-Shing Foundation in 1980, donating millions to universities and hospitals across China and East Asia, including significant philanthropic investments such as the founding of Shantou University in Guangdong Province. Li was born before modern China even existed. He was born on the land that is now mainland China, raised in Hong Kong, and is now a Canadian citizen. At 96, we can only wonder how this elderly man reflects on his life, whether he sees himself as a global businessman making purely commercial decisions or as someone inevitably entangled in history's judgment. What we do know is that a fundamental shift in the global business environment is underway. The era when businesses could operate purely based on commercial considerations, detached from geopolitics, appears to be ending. Even the most successful business leaders are no longer immune to the forces of great power competition. Perhaps in the past, a businessman and a capitalist could truly be without nationality, but now they must choose. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed today's story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss the next one.